So I've been flying with the DJI FPV for about 6 months now. I absolutely love the drone, but there's no denying that the camera quality is hot, toasty garbage, and that's being nice. Sure, you can pull good looking stuff out of it, but it's super limiting. So is there anything that we can do about it? This is the Hero 11. You may be asking, is it really that big of an upgrade? Well, take a look at this. Here are a few shots I shot last week in Puerto Rico. It's terrible, right? Everything about this screams cheap camera. And now, take a look at the GoPro footage. Hey there, how's it going? Hope your day is going amazingly. I'm having a halfway decent one myself. We're here talking about the DJI FPV versus the GoPro. Now, there's a ton of differences between them, obviously, as you saw in the intro. And the DJI FPV's camera isn't the best looking, and of course, it's not supposed to be. But there's so many things happening under the hood of the GoPro that makes it so much better, and that's what we're here talking about today. So there's a ton of things that are putting that beautiful image together, and the biggest contributors, in my opinion, is the fact that it shoots in 10-bit, which is that kind of blows my mind. This little thing, this little tiny little square shoots 10-bit. That's stupid crazy. I had the GoPro Hero 9, and by far the biggest limitation that I ran into with that drone was the 8-bit footage. And if you try to grade it, you try to push it in any direction at all, it breaks apart very fast. And so when you're shooting stuff like underwater footage, having that 10-bit headroom is going to be so absolutely useful. So yeah, that's definitely an upgrade. 10-bit is a very big reason as to why I upgraded. Another is the stabilization aspects of this. So if you saw my Costa Rica video, you know you've seen the shots that I've been able to get with the DJI FPV camera. And by no means, I think some of them are pretty good. You know, I think they're okay. But as soon as you get into the more kind of shaky maneuvers, that kind of stuff, the stabilization built into the camera just doesn't really cut it. It kind of very fastly falls apart. But where the GoPro comes into this is that it can take the gyro information from the camera itself, so it knows in which direction it was turning in flight, and applies that in post and kind of counteracts those movements to give you this. So this is before the stabilization. This is what the GoPro recorded. All right, so it's a wide 8x7 frame. We're gonna go into that later as well. And then this is after applying the stabilization. Isn't that crazy? By the way, I'm using a program called Real Steady to stabilize the footage, and it does cost $100. One thing to note for Real Steady is if you're planning on doing more acrobatic maneuvers, so crazy flips and crazy stuff, I would personally make sure that you crank that shutter speed just a hair higher, because it's essentially, if you've ever tried to stabilize shaky footage that you have shot in 24 FPS with a shutter speed of 50 using the 180 degree roll, you'll know that it introduces some weird kind of jittery disgustingness. I'll show you up on screen what I'm talking about specifically, because it looks really bad. And if you crank that shutter speed up a little bit, it'll very much get rid of that, and it'll look great. You do lose some of that motion blur, but I think that's a small price to pay for usable footage. So speaking of the 180 degree roll, being able to stick ND filters onto the camera is such a big deal. It's Very nice, very nice. The reason why that's such a big deal is now you can get that gorgeous motion blur, and especially with FPV, because FPV you move fast, and that motion blur really conveys that movement, and it gives you a sense of speed. So say if we play it here and we get down close here right by the trees, if we pause this and look on frame left, you'll see how the tree is just an absolute blur because we're going fast right by it. Now if we go back to the FPV, you can see here that it's sharp, perfectly sharp, and for a still image, once again, that's fine, but for the video where you're trying to get that sense of speed, you're not communicating that at all with this still frame. But now here you can tell we've been moving. And then again, just take a look at the colors, the water, the highlight roll off. There's no comparison at all. Also, something kind of funny here, it's kind of hard to tell in this frame. Let me get a good shot here. Here you go. The props in frame is kind of an issue. The only way you can get the props out of the frame with the FPV camera is to tilt the camera up and fly faster, which is not always good. So to have that ability to fly at those slower speeds and have the props out of frame is irreplaceable. There's no denying it looks a million times better when you have the ND filters giving that motion blur. It looks so much better. So I would absolutely use it. I have this set from I can't remember who, so I'll put a link down in the description for this specific set of ND filters. So if you know me at all, you know that I absolutely detest short form Instagram, TikTok content, at least the very lazy stuff that people post on a daily basis. I could go into how it's brain rotting and that kind of stuff, but maybe a different time. But I refuse to shoot projects entirely in vertical. However, I do like to post some of my work on Instagram in that vertical format. But the issue is when you're shooting in a 16:9 format, trying to crop into that to get a vertical version sucks because you're losing so much of the frame. So now with the GoPro, the taller sensor that you have, it's very close to 1:1, so you can crop in, get your 16:9 image, as well as use the information that you have there to get that vertical version as well, and it looks very nice. Another reason why the GoPro is so great is that you can set your DJI FPV system to be on auto exposure. Now the reason why that's awesome is because sometimes if you have it set to a custom exposure and you go in and out from dark areas, you're gonna crash because you can't see stuff sometimes. Now that's not an issue anymore, where you can set a custom exposure on the GoPro, but then for the DJI camera, have it on auto. And given the limited dynamic range that you get with the DJI FPV system, being able to set it on that auto exposure is a big deal. It allows you to ensure that you're seeing all the obstacles in your way. And FPV, if you have any experience with it, you know that you're going to depend on that because it's kind of dangerous. You're flying very dangerously, so being able to make sure that you're not going to crash into anything is nice. The dynamic range is freaking crazy, dude. Like, I was not expecting it to be that good. Again, I had the Hero 9, but I don't remember it being that good. It's been a little while since I had the Hero 9. That was back in the Puerto Rico video that we don't talk about here because it's not that good. All right, so now a shot of this, I want to say catamaran. I don't do boats. I don't know. Is that a catamaran? I'm gonna say sailboat. Here, specifically at the white of the boat, where the sun is hitting it and it's reflecting. Here, you can see that we have still a ton of detail in the frame, but as soon as we switch to the DJI FPV, look at that. Look at that. There is, honestly, this is probably one of the most telling here, just how absolutely bad it is. The white of the boat is blown out entirely. There's no detail. It's gone because the dynamic range is absolute dog water. It is terrible. Okay, so let's talk about the process of actually setting this thing up. So the big thing was finding the right mount. So I picked one up off of Amazon. I didn't have an issue with it at first, and then I started noticing some crazy vibrations whenever I'd fly. Honestly, I couldn't find any resources on why it would have been doing this. Nowhere online were there any kind of resources talking about how to fix this, aside from a few people having the same issue and them trying to tune it, of which I did. and it didn't fix it. So DJI's official response to that was something along the lines of, "Don't put the GoPro on it." And I didn't like that. I don't know if it was an issue with my personal unit, but yeah, as a last-ditch effort before I was going to return the GoPro because it wasn't working, or maybe even try to replace my drone, was to buy a new mount, and one that I found on Amazon, because it looked like it was slightly further back. So my hypothesis was that it was a little too far forward on the actual drone, and so I got the new part in, put it on to the drone, and took it for a test flight, and the issue was gone entirely. So yeah, that was the issue. It was just mounted too far forward. So I'm going to put a link in the description for the one I would buy if you're looking to do this. So flying with the GoPro, you'll certainly notice the weight limitations that it introduces. Unfortunately, it is a little tiny brick, so you are very much adding weight to the drone. If you're wondering, does it affect the flight performance and battery life? Yes, unfortunately, it does, but not as much as I had expected it would. The dives are certainly far more sketchy, since you have so much extra weight. Trying to pull out of the dives is certainly a little harder, so you want to make sure when you're trying to do those epic cinematic dives that you have a little more room than you need normally. Actually, recently we were right out there, and I was with my friend Jonathan. I took him out here to try out FPV. He has some experience in FPV stuff. He would build his own drones, and so he's very comfortable flying stuff like that. I was gonna show him my epic FPV skills and do an epic dive, and this is what happened. I came so close to death. I absolutely should not have survived. The drone should be dead, so thank the Lord, it's still alive. That was a little scary. Get a feel for how it flies as well before you start doing some crazy maneuvers. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble about this for the past however long this video is going to be. I hit 5,000 subscribers, and honestly, it's just been crazy. So thank you guys for all the support. It literally means the absolute world. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So thank you guys. I will see you here in a bit. That sunset is absolutely beautiful. I love this place.